So, hello and welcome, it's Neil Dougan again, and today in Module 10 Science we're going to have a look at the whole process around aging and what is the science of aging. To begin the analysis we have to go to the level of the cell and does the cell actually have to die? Now most cells do die, and indeed there is a scientific structure around this idea. It's called apoptosis, and it means the healthy death of a cell. And there are some cells in our body which don't, they choose not to die, and they certainly give an awful lot of trouble to many people, and those are cancer cells. So cancer cells are technically immortal, they choose not to die. And of course there is another factor there, is that not only are they choosing not to die, but they're also misbehaving in many other ways. So depending on the type of cancer cell, they're misbehaving in a great range of different sort of ways, but inherently they are actually immortal. That being said, there is plenty of examples that are coming out of the modern science of the ease of which it is possible to get cells that are completely healthy and functioning perfectly. So we're talking about cells that are very, very healthy and functioning very perfectly, no side effects, no difficulties, being able to be encouraged not to die at all. So this old, we're talking about the old science here now, view that this apoptosis was required is fast being demonstrated to be not the case at all. When we talked about the philosophy of aging, we touched on this idea of a maturation process. So in other words, how we go from being a fetus to becoming an adult who's capable of reproducing and so on. We've got that maturing cycle that is very important and undeniable. We need to actually go through that maturing cycle. But having actually achieved maturity, then whether or not we actually need to continue on down that path of aging, with all of these factors going on, is highly debatable. And indeed, where I sit on this argument. However, the key factor that's going on there is that in that maturing cycle, there's a very different set of chemistry going on in the body compared with the person who has reached maturity and then is then sort of holding space for 10 or 15 or 20 years or however long it takes under normal circumstances before the aging really kicks in. But up to that point where maturity is occurring, there's quite a different chemistry going on, and everybody talks about it. They talk about how hormonal teenagers are, for example, and that's once a person gets to the point where the gonads are actually being produced. The chemistry around all of that could be described as a whole suite of growth hormones. So there is a thing called human growth hormone factor, but there are many endocrines or hormones within the system that are involved in encouraging the body to be making these sorts of maturing processes. And what we're talking about here is that all of those growth factors change completely when you get to the point of maturity, and indeed much of the actual aging process that goes on from that point on is related to the drop-off, or indeed not only the dropping off, but the complete changing of the chemical balance of all of these hormone structures. Once again, with modern science that is emerging at the moment, is that process of it turning from being, I've matured, I'm up to the point of maturing now, and I'm at the point where I'm now going to start degenerating until I end up in a nursing home and die. So rather than that happening at that point where maturity is actually occurring, there's absolutely ample opportunity being demonstrated in the science today to switch off the chemical changes that are going on there, so that you retain that peak functioning that occurs at the point of maturity. So that might be an age of, in a man, say 25 years of age, and it could be a few years earlier for a woman, but nonetheless it's in that sort of area, early 20s or perhaps late teens, that we're talking about, when you've fully matured and you're at the point where everything is really functioning at its absolute maximum best at that point, and there's no technical reason for it to begin to trickle off at that point. You'll have seen people talking about chromosomes, and they're these lovely X-shaped things which you see within the cell, particularly at the point where the cell's getting ready to divide. So it's almost the archetype that people see as a picture of cell division and the DNA and that type of thing. And the chromosomes are made up out of DNA, and they literally are sort of cross-shaped devices like this. And at the end of these devices is what's known as telomeres, and these telomeres tend to shorten with every cell division, and when the telomeres shorten all the way down to the very bottom, you get to a point where effectively death actually ensues, because the chromosomes are no longer able to actually function properly. So telomere shortening is one of the very great targets of researchers into the disease of aging, and what they're finding is that it's entirely possible to not only prevent this telomere shortening going on so that the chromosomes remain where they are, but indeed to encourage these telomeres to grow again so that they fill out to the original length that they originally were. And this is achieved through a number of quite remarkable processes. However, the really fascinating thing is that the process that enables that to happen exists within your body, even in somebody who's in the geriatric nursing home. So you will have heard of things called stem cells, and stem cells are perfect examples of a cell which can differentiate out into any type of tissue. And once again, the science is moving so dramatically fast in this field that it's difficult to keep up with it all. However, what they've found now is that there are stem cells actually existing in every kind of tissue in your body, all the way up until the time you die. Why your body chooses not to go to those stem cells and say, we're going to use you as an example and regenerate all of this tissue which is falling apart, is the subject of the new science. So the opportunity is right there, it's just a matter of organising it. And of course, the consciousness work that we're doing within TRIM has a massive focus on all of this process. Another factor is the error processes that occur with the DNA and RNA processes. So we're talking about the replication of the DNA from one form to another. It's quite possible for the DNA to make a mistake in its replication, and it causes all kinds of problems. So many diseases actually result from the DNA replication processes not working properly. But once again, there's ample opportunity within the body to weed out those cases. So if you've got the odd cell which is effectively diseased, for that cell to terminate itself through apoptosis, just actually terminate itself, and for a new healthy cell to replace it from its neighbour which is functioning perfectly correctly. So this is a very potent and powerful focus that we use within these consciousness medicine techniques that I'm certainly using all the time. And within TRIM we have this focus on scanning out there, looking for the example cells which are still functioning perfectly well within your system, or at least that there are blueprints of good operations available to you, and then engaging the actual cell production process with these very, very healthy examples rather than the defective one that we've been talking about there. One of the old arguments around aging and its inevitability is the concept of a body clock, and the theory went, or still goes for many people, that in the DNA there's actually a degeneration program written into the DNA. So in other words, that there is a body clock and you've got a certain length of time and you're going to work your way all the way through that body clock and then you're going to die. Well, tell me this, we're talking about only the beginning of last century, before the average age expectancy was only 40 or whatever it was, like it was a very low figure. And today, age expectancy, double that. And where we're going, like 150, 200 years is going to be absolutely normal. So how does that body clock thing work? How does that argument around it's inevitable that you're going to age because there is a body clock built into the DNA doesn't make any sense at all? Absolutely is nonsense. Next factor that I want to talk about is the issue of disease as a vector of aging. So we have many diseases of aging. So for example, these degenerative diseases of the brain, Parkinson's and these types of things that we're talking about. So very, dementia, all these sorts of things. So there's many diseases which are considered to be diseases of aging. And then there's the other thing, which is a disease comes in and ages you. So the disease itself becomes a vector or a vehicle for you to end up aging. So the disease is causing the aging. And this is a very common viewpoint of the traditional science, is that no matter what, there's going to be some disease come in and age you. It's going to make you age. And once again, the ability of the body to regenerate and after an infection, or particularly with the work that we're doing around collaboration and cooperation, where we're saying to a virus or a bacteria, how can we serve you better? What information do you have for us? Well, there's no need for the body then to actually degenerate as a result of perhaps an infectious cycle or something like that occurring at all. Lastly, I just want to consider one of the most major objections to the idea of physical immortality, and that's based on evolution. So, if you're a believer in the theory of evolution, then you'll understand the idea that all life, this is the concept, is that all life began at its most basic and then evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved all the way through until here I am, standing here talking to you, making a video. We're sending this information all around the world. So it's an incredible theory, and it's an incredible idea of being able to actually achieve that. And anybody who actually is really following that type of thing, they get extremely nervous about the idea of physical immortality, because technically what we're doing is we're actually saying, no, we're going to put a halt into evolution. We're going to say where we are right now is all that's necessary, because we don't need to die anymore. And the evolutionary principle is that it's survival of the fittest. The best examples go on to reproduce, and so therefore it becomes better and fitter and more capable all the time. And immortalists like myself are saying, actually, we're far enough advanced now in the physical body. The evolution that actually needs to be occurring now is in the mind and in the spirit. And this is the new wave of evolution. So this is a very bold statement that we're talking about here. But what I'm saying is that that evolutionary principle in the physical is at a point now where it's really becoming a redundant concept, no matter to what extent it was actually a viable theory in the first instance. The new wave of understanding about evolution is personal evolution. So we're talking about evolution within the mind, evolution within the spirit, and of course the body is evolving in that immortal process, but not from this perspective of survival of the fittest. So we're going away from that concept of survival of the fittest, and we're going to a concept of pure collaboration, pure cooperation. Very different scientific process, I'm sure you'll agree. So that's the end of the video for today, and thanks so much for watching. Keep an eye out for posts in the Facebook group, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks very much.